Let's talk about something that's been driving men wild since the dawn of dating apps. Those first few words from a woman that make you question whether she's actually interested or just being polite. I've spent years working with men on dating and analyzed thousands of conversations, and let me tell you something that might blow your mind. The first 3 words of your message are generally all you need to know about her level of interest. Not for the reason most guys believe. Here's what I mean, we've all been there. You get a match with an amazing woman, your heart beats a little faster, and then the first message arrives. Maybe it's hi, what's up? Or hey, how are you? Or maybe just hi. Most guys completely misunderstand these overtures, either getting completely over-emotional about a friendly hello or completely ignoring blatant signs of attraction right in front of them. I've seen zillions of good chemistry go up in smoke because guys didn't know what they were seeing. Let me illustrate with an example of Mike, a client I worked with last year. Smart guy, successful businessman, but he was consistently striking out at dating. He told me about a message that started out with, hey, what's up? From a good-looking match. He had dismissed it as a low-interest indicator because it wasn't some elaborate pickup line. Enormous mistake. The triple Y of hey was actually a subtle but unmistakable indication of teasing interest, something women do consciously and subconsciously when they are interested. Mike had blown a golden opportunity because he didn't understand the subtle language of modern dating. I'm not saying that every hey is an indication that she's going to marry you. It depends on the context. Time of day, day of the week, what's in your profile, and dozens of other variables determine how women initiate conversations. But there are consistent patterns that most men totally overlook. For example, if she greets with your name, that's typically an extremely good sign. She's gone out of her way to make the greeting personalized instead of copy-pasting a canned opener. One thing I've noticed time and time again is that shorter isn't necessarily worse. In fact, sometimes a brief hi with an exclamation point shows more interest than a paragraph-long introductory message. Why? Because women who are genuinely interested are intimidated by coming on too strong. They'll opt for something friendly but lively rather than overwhelming you with information. It's counterintuitive, but it's true. Let's take a look at some common openings and what they actually accomplish. If a woman starts out with hey there, the there is indeed significant. It's a tactful way of creating immediate warmth and rapport. It's not just a straightforward hey, because it means she's doing a bit more than usual to be engaging. Similarly, if she begins with an emoji in her initial 3 words, that's usually a positive sign. She's trying to bring emotional color to the conversation right away. But that's where it gets juicy. The best clues always aren't in the words themselves, but in the small things most men totally miss. Such as timing, did she message you at 2 p.m. or 2 a.m.? Punctuation style, periods, or exclamation marks, and even the way she leaves space between messages can say a lot about her interest. I advised another client, James, who was on the brink of swiping away a good prospect because her first message was merely hi, but it had come at 9:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. What he did not know was that women do not typically scroll through dating apps in the early morning unless someone thoroughly impressed them. That morning communication was actually a strong indicator of interest. She thought about him during the process of getting dressed in the mornings and made extra efforts to call him. Now, let's talk about what not to do with these observations. I noticed too many men trying to overanalyze every character and punctuation mark until they lose their minds. That is not the purpose. The purpose is to take a feel for the overall patterns so you can make better decisions on where to spend your time and energy. Some men become so analysis paralyzed that they don't respond like a normal human being. Here's a truth bomb that will sting a bit. If you're taking longer than a few seconds agonizing over deconstructing her initial message, then you're already losing. These patterns are intuitive, not obsessives. The best performing men on the dating scene are the men who can read these cues on a gut level and react spontaneously, not men who treat every conversation like it's a crime scene. Let's talk about response strategy. Once you've taken away interest cues in those first 3 words, your response is critical. I've seen guys completely blow good things by overplaying it or not keeping up with her energy level. If she greets you warmly and excitedly, respond with that level of energy. If she's reserved but dropping subtle interest cues, respond in that tone. Here's a little secret that few dating coaches will ever share with you. Sometimes the best sign of interest is not in her first message to you, but in her response to your first reply. I've seen countless examples where otherwise dull opening lines like, "Hey, how are you?" turn into an excellent conversation, simply because the guy responded naturally and she answered right away with a lot more enthusiasm. It was like she was testing the waters with that first message. The timing of her initial message can be very revealing as well. If she sends you a message at prime time, evening hours when everyone is online on dating apps, that's to be expected. But if she sends you a message at off-peak hours, particularly early morning or late night, that usually means she's more interested. She's thinking about you outside of regular dating app hours. Let's discuss something important. Differences in cross-cultural and cross-generational communication styles. What may obviously be an indication of attraction from one person may have a completely different interpretation from someone else. Career status, age, and culture can all decide how one is going to open up. I've noticed women in certain career fields, like law or medicine, tend to be more formal in their opening message, but don't assume that formality for lack of attraction. That brings us to point number 2. Context is queen. Her profile, your profile, any previous interactions, like Instagram followers or mutual friends, and even the app you're swiping on all influence how she might start it. A opening message on Bumble will likely be different from one on Tinder or Hinge, simply because of the differences in culture and expectation on these apps. One of the most frequent mistakes I notice men making is ignoring what I call the digital body language in these first messages. Just as physical body language can tell you a great deal about someone's interest level in person, digital body language, the combination of word choice, timing, punctuation, and emoji usage can give you very clear signals about interest level online. The trick is to learn to read them without overanalyzing. Remember my client Mike? Once he learned how to read these cues properly, his entire dating life was transformed. He started investing all his energy into the conversations that actually had potential from those initial 3 words, instead of wasting time on no-show contacts or letting obviously obvious signs of interest pass him by. In the space of 3 months, he was dating a girl who had sent him a welcoming, "Hey Mike," smiley face, something that he would previously have discarded as low interest. The key point here is not to say that certain words or patterns guarantee interest. Rather, it's learning to interpret the subtle clues women give in their first messages and still make conversations natural and authentic. The guys who can find this middle ground are the ones who make matches become connections again and again. So the next time you get that first message, take a fraction of a second to notice the subtle cues, the timing, the personalization, the subtle added flourishes like the exclamation marks or emojis. And then skip the analysis and just respond as yourself. Because at the end of the day, the best relationships start with real communication, not perfect analysis of every character and comma.